by two identifiable language testing theories, item response theory and Reconstructionism. Each of these theories will be outlined and followed with a short example to illuminate whether or not the NCAN test truly adopts the theoretical principles proposed. Next, I will evaluate the NCAN test in relation to the constructs of validity and authenticity. Finally, the washback of NCAN on Japanese learners of English will be discussed, specifically focusing on the issue of identity perception. Item response theory, IRT, proposes that the probability of selecting the correct answer for each test item is dependent on both the ability of the test taker and the difficulty of the item. It is a common approach in high-stakes testing as it requires a large number of participants for validation. IRT is based on probability. The greater ability a test taker has, the higher probability they will select the correct response. IRT links the observed performance of an individual to a specific trait on the underlying continuum of language development. Oki 2012 points out three main features of IRT. 1. Unidimensionality, the designing of tasks so that only the trait being assessed underlies the response to the item. 2. Local independence, the responses to each item are independent of one another. And 3. Certainty of response. Test takers make an effort to show their maximum amount of ability when completing a test. The NCAN website reports that it employs IRT theory in the analysis of test scores as an approach to develop comparability. As the NCAN test is not widely known outside of Japan, the Foundation has found it necessary to develop a scale of comparison. As IRT theory is often associated with high-stakes testing and allows test designers to pinpoint language development on a continuum, the NCAN Foundation uses IRT as a technical procedure to create a common scale. As shown in the following image, the NCAN Foundation has used this scale to make comparisons between the test results of NCAN and the Common European Framework of Reference, a highly versatile tool for the comparison of English language proficiency across global contexts. At this broad level, the use of IRT to allow for comparability may appear reasonable. However, the NCAN test has trouble maintaining its link with IRT theory when considering a more narrow focus. That is, examining the Grade 3 speaking test in relation to Oki's 2012 3 IRT fundamentals. 1. Unidimensionality. Have the tasks on the NCAN Grade 3 speaking test been designed as unidimensional? The answer is no. The Grade 3 speaking test is supposed to be assessing the language trait of speaking. However, to perform that ability in relation to the test tasks, a student must use other language traits and cognitive abilities. For example, reading ability and comprehension for Task 1. 2. Local independence. Are the required responses for each task independent from each other? This feature is more problematic, as the NCAN speaking test does present item independence, in that each task can be completed without reference to the previous responses. However, the tasks do depend on written and visual stimuli, with the second and third question both relying on the same stimulus. So, item independence is not necessarily complete. 3. Certainty of response. Do test takers make an effort to show their maximum amount of ability during the speaking test? I believe the answer to this question is yes. To support my opinion, I am going to refer to my personal experience in preparing students for the NCAN speaking test. I worked with 5 senior high students ranging from 1st to 3rd year, years 10 to 12 in Australia, and found each student was highly motivated to succeed in the speaking test. The speaking test is the final challenge to attaining certification in any NCAN level from grade 3 onwards, so there is compelling reason to give one's best effort. Additionally, students are assessed on their attitude to communicating in English, which is further motivation to show maximum ability during the test. However, despite the fact that the NCAN Grade 3 speaking test potentially fulfills 2 of the 3 IRT criteria, I am hesitant to conclude that IRT is the most influential theory underlying the NCAN test. Instead, I would argue that the theory of Reconstructionism provides a more accurate representation of the NCAN tests, both broadly and at each level and section. Reconstructionism is an educational philosophy that is used in outcomes-based test design. It employs predefined criteria to identify what students should know or be able to do. In Reconstructionism, test designers identify specific learning outcomes that align with the overall purpose of a course of study. Reconstructionism enables test designers to create and use benchmarks, as each level of the test has specific outcomes which the test takers are expected to be able to achieve. Referring to the Grade 3 speaking test, it becomes apparent that the theory of Reconstructionism is underpinning the NCAN testing scheme. Firstly, when we examine the information provided by NCAN in relation to the Grade 3 speaking test, we find the following criteria presented. Evaluation criteria. Examinees are evaluated on their response to each of the tasks and for their attitude toward actively engaging in communication. The following categories are also taken into account: pronunciation, vocabulary, and grammar. The predefined criteria for successful completion of the Grade 3 NCAN speaking test is comprised of response, attitude, and linguistic competence. Candidates are expected to be able to perform these abilities, and their responses should accurately show their knowledge of the English language requirements being assessed by the NCAN level in which they are participating. Furthermore, the NCAN test is pass/fail based, with students receiving accreditation only after passing the speaking test. This is another feature of Reconstructionism, where tests are mastery-based and candidates receive a pass or fail mark depending on their performance.